Karl Marx was born in Germany on May 5th in the year 1818 and lived until 1883. Marx was a very prominent philosopher, sociologist, economist, political theorist, and a socialist revolutionary. Many people recognize his name because of his popular book that is still analyzed today, The Communist Manifesto. This was written with Friedrich Engels, who was another German philosopher that Marx worked with. The Communist Manifesto was a political pamphlet that attempted to explain the goals of communism and explain social class struggle. Marx advocated for communism and believed that property should be publicly owned and that everyone should work and be paid according to their abilities and needs. The concept of economic class struggle in capitalist societies was a topic that Marx focused on quite extensively in his career. Marx did not write much about crime, but him and Engels wrote often about the economic class conflict that exists in capitalist societies and that they believed it would ultimately result in those societies' downfall. Their ideologies led to the concept of historical materialism. Historical materialism is a concept that was coined by Karl Marx. The textbook defines this term as the method of study and explanation for understanding how past empirical events shape future social systems. Marx took the materialist view on human consciousness and believes that it is formed from society's conditions of work labor. Marx viewed materialism through its historical context and how material life shapes an individual's social life. Essentially, he studied history by the way people worked and lived at that time. An easier way to define historical materialism is that it is the idea that society's economic organization is what fundamentally determines its social institutions. Marx believed that each historical period had a dominant mode of production, which helps us understand that society's social relations and institutions at that time. This can be seen through feudalism, slavery, socialism, and etc. The concept of historical materialism views the history of production as directly related to and the cause of class structure. For example, the United States is currently a capitalist society. Marx would say that this capitalist society causes social relations to exist between the owners of the means of production and the labor workers. This leads to class conflict and the exploitation of the labor workers by the few that own the means of production. As technology advances and society's means of production changes, so does society's social structures and relations. For example, the invention of tractors changed the way agriculture was conducted. Originally, farmers would work in the field with the help of animals, and then the tractors were created so they did not need animals' help anymore, which led to industrial farmers owning the tractors, which led to labor workers no longer being needed, which would ultimately lead to a class struggle.
Criminology is the scientific study of criminal behaviors as well as the contributing factors that cause crime rates to rise. Over the past 2 centuries, the broad field and its schools of thought have evolved to continue offering different models on criminal behavior and crime. As our society transforms, so does the field. Contemporary criminology highlights 3 different views. First, the consensus model. The consensus model dictates that crime is derived by the law, and the law is generally something that's widely agreed upon, hence the word consensus. The conflict model is second, and this one dictates that crime is derived by the differences that the diverse groups that make up society have. Their differences cause them to be in constant conflict with one another. And last but not least, the interactionist model, which dictates that crime is ever evolving in reaction to our ever evolving society, depending on the values and the morals that society holds in that time period reflects the types of crimes that are being committed and the type of criminal behavior that's being observed. As previously mentioned, the conflict model of contemporary criminology differs from the other models in which it was derived from Marxist ideologies, which focus on how economic class divisions cause struggles for power in society. The rich, which are the minority, have more power and influence on what is defined as a crime. Marx established that each socioeconomic class has its own values. Thus, achieving a fair criminal justice system has many obstacles. Overall, the powerful and rich are the ones who have the means to make significant changes to the criminal justice system. But as discussed in lecture, why would they want to take themselves out of power? The criminal justice system we have in place makes the rich richer and is detrimental to the lower class, which, according to Marx, is the purpose of the conflict model.
For the next 2 slides, I'll be explaining what relevance historical materialism has to contemporary criminology. Now, historical materialism is defined as viewing the history of production as directly related to the foundation of class structure. Now, class structure is depicted in the image on the right side of this slide. And the whole this whole idea was based on Marxist ideology, which is why there's a lot of emphasis on Karl Marx in this presentation. And the reason why it's really relevant to contemporary criminology is that it gave rise to one of the forms of contemporary criminology we know today, which is conflict theory, which was previously explained, but in the next slide I'll go over it a little bit. Another way that historical materialism is relevant to criminology, or a continuing way that I'll explain, is that conflict theory emphasizes class conflicts, and under this theory it's believed that those conflicts are the reason why people engage in criminal behavior. And this is relevant to historical materialism because both of these theories of crime focus on class conflicts and the class structure that we have in society, and they both attribute certain criminal behavior with those things. And the other theory that I've seen that is relevant in criminology to historical materialism is the interactionist theory. Now this one isn't as much relevant to historical materialism as conflict theory, but the foundations align more with conflict theory. But the one thing that I did notice is that interactionist theory also has a history element. So both this theory and historical materialism look at history in order to better understand how we should go about these topics today.